Welcome to the Motor for Life radio show. This is Robert Christensen. Thank you for joining me. Over the last week, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about the input that I've received from so many people about transparency about my life. I've made so many challenging decisions, right? We practice this belief that no decision was a wrong decision, that every decision I make is perfect and perfect for the moment. But when you really step in a pile of shit, and when you go out and you think you're doing the right thing, but you're driven by your ego, you're driven by money exclusively, and you're driven by greed or jealousy or anger, those decisions are really painful. They just loop back on you, and you will end up having just a very, very bad time. And that's what happened to me. I just remember a number of decisions that I've made for completely the wrong reasons. They were the right decisions, but for the wrong reasons. And so, when you have a basis of a woundedness, meaning that you're just trying to cover up all the pain that had happened to you or the pain that you caused other people, the layers of denial and victimhood and if only they had done this and I could have been better if they had done that, and you held me back and I'm mad at you, so I'm never going to talk to you, all of that shit. You and me will make decisions that are just fundamentally completely off base, but they're the right decisions at the time, right? Because there is no other way to make a decision when you're that way. And so when I think about a series of decisions I made in the early 2000s around my career and how I got myself into just the worst financial position I've just ever been in my life. It was crazy, and so I was working for a company called All Covered. It was a startup in the 1997, 1998, and I joined them in late 1999 as a vice president of a Western region. And we were doing IT consulting for small businesses. This is the big .bomb era. Everybody was funding everything on the planet. Money was flowing everywhere. I remember flying up to the Bay Area every other week, working on our plans. And, it was crazy town. Just how much money was flowing around in the Bay Area. And, we acquired 3 or 4 different companies. And, at one point, the HR VP and another person came up to me and handed me a book about, radical accountability. And they were telling me basically stop being a victim and take responsibility for what's going on. And I was completely blind to what they were showing me and could not hear, completely deaf to what they were telling me. I didn't get it. I didn't know what that meant to be ridiculously accountable, to be 100% accountable for all things in my life. So I just didn't hear it. And I was laid off about 3 weeks later. Oh, and by the way, I just purchased the dream house of my life. My wife and I had purchased a house that we just loved in Aliso Viejo, and it was just catastrophic. I mean, I was in sheer terror at the time. And at one point in a hotel room, just after I had gotten that word, I for like the briefest of second, I just didn't see any point of living. I mean, I really had a suicidal thought, and it scared me. Because I knew that wasn't, suicidal quality stuff, right? I wasn't a suicidal person, but I had the thought. And that just rocked me to my core. And I just left there and we're looking at a brand new house. We've been in it 4 months and I didn't have a job. And then I just started going after a number of other companies that I thought I could get a job in. And this was in 2000 and 2001, and the .bomb was heading our way. I took a job with a technology company called The Brain, which was months away from folding, but they didn't tell me that. I was on that team for about 4 to 5 months before they went under. which I really appreciated that. And then there was another company I joined, some Salesforce type company. It was a SaaS-based company. And that didn't last very long either because they were suffering. So I went through that one. And then I took one more. This were 3 separate jobs in 1 year. And they were all failing. The companies were failing. And I was picking losers. This was me. I'm not blaming them. I'm picking the losers and I'm getting laid off. And I'm just struggling. And I just said, fuck it. I'm out of technology. I'm gone. And so I did a radical left turn and went into the mortgage industry. And this was time when Lending Tree was all hot and bothered and people were starting to do different things. This is 2001, mid 2001. And I started a mortgage company and I got under somebody's brokerage license and then, started, you had to get a real estate license at the time. And I started doing mortgages. And this was 2002 and started doing pretty well. Actually, I started doing very well. I got really good at it. I stitched together an online lead generation system. I used all my technology background and I ran that until about 2004 to 2005, while at the same time, I did nothing to reinvest the money. Did nothing to change the direction of my family's financial well-being. And if you understand my story, you understand that the reason I was doing that, the reason I was succeeding and failing at the same time is because I didn't feel worthy of the success. That the mortgage industry that I shifted over to out of the technology industry turned out to be a really good move. I was ahead of the game. I saw the opportunities because this is prior to the real estate collapse. I saw what was going on and I got in. It was a good move and I was making great money and I was keeping our family afloat and stuff. But at the same time, I started picking up playing poker. And that was something that completely came out of left field. And if you read my book, you understand that the poker turned out to be another way to beat myself up while I tried to build myself up. It's this cycle of self, negative self-worth. Every time you do well, you do a self-sabotage to bring yourself back down. And so I had introduced that into my world and I was spending 20 hours a week doing that instead of working on this new booming business that I had. I'm going to be a professional poker player. So, from the outside looking in, that's a stupid fucking idea. And I just didn't know how to not have those ideas. It was the best decision I could make at the time. If you think about that, I couldn't make any other decision because my internal guidance system wouldn't allow me to double, triple down on the mortgage business. And so eventually that mortgage business collapsed and fell down, and I stopped working on it because I could also see the collapse of the financial industry coming based on just how many people were in the mortgage industry and the really stupid stuff that was going on. So I got out and I started really trying to figure out how I could do something else. And then a buddy of mine had this business helping people in a bankless bank environment. Basically, it was an ING Direct competitor in a prepaid debit cards as well. And so we linked this stuff together and we raised almost $4 million from investments to build this thing up. And it actually was a pretty damn good idea. Again, it was right when people who were, unbanked didn't have any place to put their money. And so anything, basically we were competing with other bankless bank companies. What I mean by bankless bank is that there's no physical building by which you walk up to. Everything was online and it was all SaaS based and stuff. So I stitched this whole system together using all these different platforms and it worked really, really well. And that business started doing well again. This is it. I get a hold of these businesses and I would run them up, turn away, and let it fail. And the reason I turned away and let it fail is because I didn't feel worthy of its success at a certain level. So now I'm in with somebody else. I'm accountable to this other person. But what I neglected or didn't understand is I drew in somebody at the same worthiness level as me. We found each other. So once the business got to a certain point, the whole thing started coming apart. The wheel started coming apart. We were fighting with each other, and we had all sorts of problems. And then eventually that business came apart about a year after the real estate industry collapsed. And I got out, we figured out some way of separating, and we moved on. But let me tell you something. That was a very, very difficult and learning experience. And one more time, I was right back to where I was, where I had two solid business starts. That one got off the ground. I turned away. The second one got off the ground, the bankless bank, and I sold my equity in the company and then moved on. Now here's the thing. Here's the thing is that where did I move on to? Well, I took a job as a CIO for a small credit card payment company, and I kept that for about a year. And that was just kind of banging along the bottom, really. I really didn't have a lot going on. It wasn't much of a job. And then I hooked up with another company as their CIO, and that turned out to be much better, and that was in the refurbished storage unit and was refurbished storage disk drive systems. And then we got together with the owners and we decided to start Cloud Nation. Now, remember, through all of this stuff, I'm just barely pulling it together paycheck to paycheck. And why is that? Because the paycheck to paycheck was the way I lived. And it was not good. Okay, because when you have two startup companies and you walk away from, you don't have a lot of assets behind you. And when you do finally go into business with somebody else, you're just trying to do it on a shoestring. So that's a paycheck to paycheck as well. And I just rolled it forward. And for almost 10 years, I went paycheck to paycheck. And then one day my wife came to me and said, I am so scared of our financial situation that my hair is falling out. I didn't even know how to deal with that. I didn't even understand what and how to navigate out of it. And I literally had what I would consider a personal emotional bottom and crashed internally in my own personal guidance system inside. And so, I actually started looking for outside help to help me figure out, is it my psychology that's constantly trying to self-sabotage me? Is it something inside me that I'm doing wrong? I was taking ownership. Let's just say that. No one to blame but me. And then, so I did a little bit of that, about 4 months of couch work, is what I call it for a psychologist. And that really helped identify some things that were self-sabotage to me, having to go back to when I was like 12 or 13, when I got beat up a lot. I got in a lot of fights and no one protected me at that time. So, when I got in a fight, I usually got my butt kicked. And so a lot of that carried forward into self-sabotage and fighting and all sorts of different things until I was like my almost mid 40s. And that just sucked. No better way to say it. But I didn't know what was happening to me. And then I was driving along one time. I was going to go meet some folks, and an overwhelming voice inside me said, Robert, the reason you keep self-sabotaging is because you do not want what it is I have to offer. And I couldn't deny that voice. I couldn't deny that voice saying and being accurate. I couldn't deny that every time I got something good in my life, I either let it go, burned it down, threw it away, whatever. That financially, I should say, monetarily, I should say, anything that gave me a sense of financial security. I was very good at being a father and a husband, but not very good at a provider. Just wasn't very good. And then I heard that. And that was a massive turning point, a massive turning point for me. And when I realized what it was at my very core, that my self-worth would not allow me to accept anything good past a certain point, whether it be monetary success, career, health-wise, specifically how much I weigh and how I looked, accolades, having, people supporting me. There was just a deep sense of anger at myself, anger at others, and a worthiness routine that would not allow me to go past a certain point. And then that's what I did. That's what I started doing and studying this whole issue of worthiness. And I discovered that there was literally nothing I could find on self-worth or self-worth studies. It was all about self-esteem. And I didn't believe it was self-esteem. You can have great self-esteem, but don't believe you're worth more than $100,000 a year. I believe and have great self-esteem about my computer science skills. I think I'm really, really good at them. I'm very proud of them. But ask me to make more than $150,000 a year as a lead computer scientist for a company, or as an entrepreneur in a mortgage company, or in a bankless bank, or a cloud computing company. Could never do it, ever. And so that worthiness, that language in my head that I suck, that I'm no good, that I shoulda, coulda, woulda. You don't understand. I have a childhood like this, and I would roll out all the reasons of being a victim. That language, that language, the words and the emotions that were built into my subconscious system had to change. And that started it all. That's how it all got going. And from that day till now, and it's been almost 10 years, I have been relentlessly focused on elevating my self-worth and the self-worth of those around me. And this podcast, along with all the 150 other ones that we have on the Motive for Life show, are focused on this single topic of self-worth. And how do you elevate the worthiness of the identity, the language and worthiness of yourself, so that you do not deny the beauty of life that comes to you in the form of money, in the form of career, in the form of relationships and family and health and spirituality and education and recreation and teaching and tithing and all of those things that make up the beauty of life. How do you allow for all that to happen? And I remember when I first started turning the corner on this stuff, I was able to sell my company, Cloud Nation. I bought out the two majority shareholders. I had the majority shares. I negotiated the sale of the company, and I was able to get my family out of debt and to buy a house. And that was huge, because for the first time ever, I had stacked some wins. And that was in 2013. And then I got a job with another company called Cloud Technology Partners. And I joined with a few other folks as we were launching cloud computing professional services, and they had a great vision, and they wanted me and I wanted them. And we just stayed there until that company was sold. And now I'm with another larger company, and we're doing some great things there. And they've given me plenty of room to have my side hustles and my teachings and the stuff I'm doing and the books I'm writing, all of that stuff. Now, you can too. If this resonates at any level with you, if any of this fits into your thinking, go get the book, The Bug in Our Brain. It's on Amazon and Kindle, and start reading it. It's a $15 book, and it's really easily consumable. All of the chapters like 2 or 3 pages, and they just have a basic message. They're more like essays. But it teaches you the technology about what we talk about. And then, there's something called Insight Timer, which has the gift meditation. And the gift meditation is simply a set of affirmations that you practice over a 90-day period that will uproot and disrupt the current cycle of worthiness inside you and put you on the right path. And the more you do the gift, in the morning and in the evening, the faster the disruption. But remember, with every disruption comes change, and that change can be painful. So hang on. I have yet to meet anybody who's done the gift and not have some serious tectonic shift in their worthiness, but also the introduction of something called the red zone. And the red zone occurs when you go above your worthiness level and a whole bunch of panic, crazy self-sabotage behavior happens. And when I look back on all of those things that I was doing, the companies I walked away from, the opportunities to go across the finish line and never did, it's because I was in the red zone. And if you don't know you're in the red zone, you get completely baffled as to why you simply are not winning. And so doing the gift will will elevate your self-worth to a new level and give you the opportunity to work through the red zone. These and many other meditations are on Insight Timer. Look up Robert Christensen there. There's probably 20 or so meditations and various things I do there. Those are all for free. The gift is available at motiveforlife.com. You can download that for free. In addition to that, there's a whole bunch of other resources that I publish on Instagram and TikTok. You can go to Robert Motive at both those locations. Type in Robert Motive on TikTok and Instagram. I do have a Facebook page, but that's really more my day-to-day life. And so you can see what I do for photographs and stuff like that. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. I post a lot of leadership stuff and business-related stuff on LinkedIn. So just about everything I do, I give away. We do have courses, and these courses are being introduced in Motive for Life. And we have another course coming up here, these level up courses, where you can go online and participate and sign up. And if you need more information, feel free to just contact me through the Motive for Life website at info@motiveforlife.com. Hey, this is Robert Christensen. Thank you so very much for joining me today. I hope my story is of use to you, and I wish you all the love and best in the world. Thank you. This has been a Motive for Life Productions, all rights reserved.